Are you ready for another power move? Hey everybody, it's CJ Johnson. This last week, Tony Roy from Into Pickle and I have been talking about 3 power moves to win easier points. If you've missed any of those, make sure that you click down below in the show notes for links to the other videos. Speaking of missing out, we still have a couple more webinars coming up as well as a new online immersive learning community. Make sure that you check out the show notes below or click on this link. Now, let's get into power move number 3. Everyone to 3 power moves to win more pickleball points. Today, you're going to learn how to play better pickleball by making the ultimate shift from someone who struggles with strategy and performance to a player who confidently and instinctively execute. So let's talk about what is going to be happening during the day. Here's the agenda. We're going to get to those 3 power moves momentarily. After we do, we are going to introduce you to our new immersive online pickleball community, VIPickleball. And then after that, we'll be staying here to get all your questions answered in a Q&A session.
Absolutely. CJ and I talked about it, and we came up with what we think are 3 really interesting power moves that we can share with you today. We're going to talk about short returns. You're going to see that's a super overlooked part of this game. That power move, super nice power move. You're going to get some nice, easy points there. We're going to work on some offensive lobs at the non-volley zone, a skill for anybody. Anybody can use the skill effectively. And we're going to talk about aggro dinking, which is a really interesting way of dinking and looking at the game a little different.
So let's move into our last one, Tony. Let's talk about that aggro dink.
CJ, I'm thinking like these are too many power moves. You guys be careful out there with all these power moves. You know, they're power moves, so be careful with them. But aggro dink is a super interesting one to me because, when we think about dinking, we think about neutralizing shot, which is a traditional dink, right? It's a defensive shot that's used to basically, soften things up, slow things down, get everything kind of chill out, everybody relax. But what we can do is we can use the dink sometimes aggressively. And I'll show you in the board in a second, but I want to explain the concept first, which is what you want to do is let's say you get a neutral dink. So you get a dink that sits up nice and neutral. What a lot of players do is they step forward to that dink, right, or move or get to the dink, and then they just dink it back neutrally, right? So what you're doing is you're giving them an opportunity, which, as I mentioned earlier, it's not a big error, but it's a little error because you're giving up opportunity. So what you want to do in that situation, I'll show you on the board, is what you want to do is you basically want to you're going to move the ball. So say you're dinking back and forth, right? And you get that neutral dink, right? This instead of the same one that you hit the non-volley zone lob with earlier. So you get this nice neutral dink, and you'll see it in the video in a second. It sits up nicely for you. And so what are you going to do? What a lot of players do is they just dink it back neutrally like that, right? Instead of doing that, why not take this ball and push it into a spot like this, or like this, or like this? And in the workbook that you got, you saw that there's an over like a sky shot of a court, and it shows you the arcs of the players, right? So if you think about a player having a paddle in their hand and you go like this, right? That's kind of the semicircle where the player can reach, right? So if you hit it into that semicircle and say it goes a little high and a little deep, they can attack it. Now, if you hit it outside of the circle, so say like here, right? This player can't reach the ball in the air, even if it's a little bit deeper, a little bit higher, it's a better shot, right? And it also creates, this middle shot is deadly sometimes. This middle shot will create stress between these players. Nobody knows who to get it or what to do with it. So when you're out there playing and you get that neutral dink, instead of dinking it back neutrally, think about being aggressive with it, pushing it into one of these spots.
While you're queuing up that video, let me just reiterate what the power move is, right? What the aggro dink is. So if you get that opportunity, as Tony said, you are pushing the ball to a certain spot. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get them uncomfortable so that potentially you create the pop-up. And that happens when you go outside of that strike zone. So the next time you're at the court, stand at the NVZ, reach out and put that paddle in front of you like Tony showed you so you can see that strike zone, and make sure you refer back to your workbook as well. And then the last thing, and probably this is the most common thing is sping. I'm foreshadowing that one. How do you like that, Tony?
I like it.
You don't need to spin it. I mean, we get asked all the time about spinning a dink. If you're aggro dinking, if you're pushing outside of that strike zone, you do not have to spin the ball. That is enough to the placement is enough to potentially force that error. So Tony, you got that video queued up?
We are ready to go, and I'm going to start it here and look at that form by CJ Johnson on that dink. That's awesome balance, CJ. Love it. All right, let's talk about the dinking with intention to create stress and cause errors here. Get it queued up here. Here we go. So we're going to get rolling on this. All right, so back to our friends here, the mixed doubles match. We're going to see some really nice dinking, aggro dinking here. So again, we have the team on this side, it's the serve team. Quick side note. Beautiful cover the middle by the player on the other side. Love it, protecting her partner, okay? Well, side note there for you. So here we're working up, right? Serve team's working up. Here we go. So now the serve team has basically almost gotten to the non-volley zone. So what the return team's going to do is start moving this ball around. The player in blue, that's a nice, see what I said about a neutral dink, right? See this dink here? Very neutral because the player with his back to us has to defend, right? Because he's moving forward. So you get this nice neutral dink. So what are you going to do with that ball? Just dink it back neutrally? No. What you're going to do is you're going to basically, and see, no spin on that ball, right? It's just a nice little shove over to a spot, one of the spots we showed you on the board, right? That stresses the player. Now the player comes back. She actually does a pretty good job of being aggressive with it, but see what the player in blue sees here. He sees an opening in front of him. He sees sunshine, open space, right? So he's going to push that ball over there. Again, just a nice little push there. And then that creates stress on this player. This player, the player, male player with his back to us has to step away under stress. What do we get here? The magic pop up and put away, right? So that's how you aggro dink to create pressure on your opponents by not just dinking neutrally. Here we're going to see pros doing it. This is a different level of aggro dinking, but let's go through it real quick. We're going to see here is we're going to see some, basic, really solid fundamental play, obviously. Serve team on the other side moving up here. And then look how that's Irina Tereshchenko coming out there. Look how aggressive that dink is, right? I mean, that's some stress, guys. I don't know. If I get a ball like that, I'm not sure if my ball's coming back like Irina's came back there, which is pretty decent, right? But here you can see Andrea Koop is in the peach or salmon color there. So you can see that she's basically in control of these dinks, right? She's moving players around, right? She's not just dinking neutrally to the player like in front of her or across from her. She's trying to push players off like this. Push players off the court. She's moving that ball around. She's trying to find a spot to basically make them move and hopefully get an error. So here she goes to the middle, right? That's moving that ball around. And this is exactly that spot I showed you on the board. Between these two players, super difficult to deal with. If you get it to bounce in there, super difficult to deal with. Now she's moving Irina around. Irina's getting a work out here. Now she goes the other way, right? Gets it. She goes to the other spot. So in this dink, we've seen all three spots that I showed you on the board. Both sides in the middle, right? None of these dinks are going into the arc. They're all going, corners and middle, right? So here we have Andrea again. Andrea, and if you watch this rally again and again, you can see that Andrea's in control. She's in total control of everything that's happening here, right? She's pushing the other players around. And so here she goes back to Irina again and gets the error, okay? So she's putting so much stress on the opponents that she ends up getting the error that she wants. So basically, think of dinking not just as a defensive neutral shot, which it is. It's a very important aspect of the game. Add another layer to it, making it a power move by dinking to cause stress. Make sure when you're doing, you avoid your opponent's strike zone, which we talked about, and forget about the spin. If you have spins, use them. If you don't have spins, forget about it. Worry about the position of the dink rather than the spin. Of the narrative of the game. You can go out there and play pickleball passively and just take whatever happens to you, win or lose, or you can be the protagonist in your own game, take control of it, and ultimately, hopefully, win more games. And it's the same thing, CJ, with learning pickleball. One of the things that you and I talk about learning pickleball is you're going to learn it passively or proactively. So the question at the end of the day is, would you like us as a player to teach you how to take control of your game, gain confidence, and ultimately become the player you really want to be?
Because here's what we've got for you. At this point in time, there's really two options. I mean, you can try to keep improving on your own without a plan, but you're going to run the risk of being in the same place next year. Or option number two, you 100% commit to improving your game with coaches like Tony and I and a community designed to answer your questions and support you every step of the way. If option number two sounds like something that interests you, we'd like to invite you to VIPickleball.
CJ and I built VIPickleball to be the only immersive pickleball training community of its kind that teaches you techniques and strategies to create a clear path to success. So here are some of the things that we focus on in building this model. We wanted to make sure that you learn how to understand the best strategy for the situation that you're in, learn to apply the tactics at the appropriate time, like we talked about today when we talked about the short return attack and things like that. How to become proactive in your game as opposed to just being reactive as you play. Using these power moves is one of the elements of doing that. Creating reliable shots, including a reliable third shot, and overall improving your pickleball fitness.
Now, here's one of the things that Helen had to say about online learning. She said, I'm an information person. The sessions were well organized and contents rich. CJ shared great resources and provided us access to additional items mentioned during the sessions. The online format made it easy to interact with her. And that is from Helen. So inside VIPickleball, there are 3 major components. So there's a 24/7 on-demand digital library. There's live coaching with Tony and I. And then, of course, there's a community full of resources and support.
For more information on VIPickleball, check out wearepickleball.com for more information. You're going to want to be a part of this community.